This is going to be quite a treat today because I am going to be talking with a guy. Actually, he's right here. Chris, how you doing, man? This is Chris Meyer, and I call him Mr. Lowrance. I don't know if you know that, Chris, but I'm going to call you Mr. Lowrance. Is there a Mr. Lowrance? I'm going to give you that name because if there is a Mr. Lowrance already, we're just going to knock that guy out. You're going to have the title now, Mr. Lowrance, from now on. But Chris is a very... This guy is so technical, and he knows everything that is possible to know about depth finders, fish finders, whatever you want to call them. It's going to be a really awesome discussion today. I'm really excited because, number one, Chris is a hell of a fisherman, but he knows electronics. So we're going to get real in-depth today. So let's get into it.
This isn't another fishing podcast. This is another fishing podcast.
My man, Chris. How you doing, dude? Welcome to another fishing podcast. I'm doing well, thank you.
Excited to be here. Yeah. I've never been on a podcast before. So
I find to me that's hard to believe because you are a wealth of knowledge. And I guess first, what's important is to kind of talk about how we know each other. So I used to film for the Next Bite television, and the Next Bite, I think they still might be sponsored by Lowrance, but at the time that I was working with the Next Bite, they're sponsored by Lowrance, and Chris would be a guest on commonly, and I've been in a boat with Chris quite often, or quite a lot, and spent a lot of, just a lot of hours in a boat. I mean, you don't even want to know the conversations we've had. A lot has nothing to do with electronics, stuff we can't even talk about here. But Chris is first and foremost, he's a great guy. I've just enjoyed long chats with Chris in the past, and he actually doesn't even live that far from me, which is cool. Which means that really we need to go fishing together more. And I need to learn, dude. I was thinking about this today in kind of preparation for this podcast. But like, you're a hell of a walleye fisherman, and I am just an idiot when it comes to walleyes, and I want to know more. I filmed. What's funny is I filmed so many, walleye tournaments, and I've been in the boat with the greatest walleye anglers on the planet, and I still really don't know what I'm doing out there. So I would really like for you to take me under your wing, okay, and tell me because I'm a green carp fisherman, you know that,
It's true. It's true.
So
Dynamite.
What's that?
Dynamite works great.
Yeah, there's plenty of times when the bass haven't been biting that good, and I've wanted to do that. But so let's kind of just get into what your job title is, and what you do for a living, just so people know who you are.
Yeah, no problem. I'm actually a key account manager for Navico. My responsibilities is the vessel view, the C10 products, the HD4 products for Mercury, Suzuki, and Honda, as well as I call in some boat builders in the upper Midwest, Canada, and the Pacific Northwest. So I'm on an airplane more than I'm in a boat anymore, but it's all right. But I often refer to myself as the cat herder of Navico, just trying to keep everything in line and keep everyone moving down the straight path. So
how often are you traveling as compared to my wife figured it out recently. She was like, you're gone 50% of the time. So what's the percentage for you on the road?
Yeah. I mean, pre-COVID, it was, every other week on an airplane somewhere, or, even more than that. But once COVID hit, it was kind of nice because I get to stay home and work from home. I mean, I work from home anyway, so I don't go to an office. I don't think I would fare well in an office environment. Yeah,
that's why I do what I do, man.
Exactly.
Same way.
So yeah, I mean, just the travel slowed down. It's picking back up. I actually leave tomorrow morning. I have a 5:00 flight to Lake of the Ozarks to hang out there for a week for a dealer meeting. And August is a busy month. I think I'm home like 5-6 days in August maybe. And, September a few days, and October few days, and November, December, I'll be home all the time, but hopefully do a little ice fishing if we get early ice, which would be good. So just depends.
So how did you, so first you're a fisherman, you before you even, got into this job. I mean, you loved fishing So, I mean, we're similar in that respect. You got into this job because you love fishing first, right? I mean, you're a diehard fisherman first.
Yeah, I am actually. It's kind of funny how I ended up getting the job. I helped out a customer while I was waiting to talk to the Lowrance rep, who is now retired, Mike Schnettler, at the Minneapolis Boat Show. And I helped a customer out with a question on one of the original Eagle One GPSs
That's so great.
had no mapping, no mapping. It just chart plotter, with a breadcrumb trail on it. So he asked me if I wanted to be a pro staff guy, and I said sure. And I guided out of McQuaid's up on Mille Lacs for a number of years, and on my own for a number of years, and just kept doing the pro staff stuff. And before you know it, I was doing dealer support for the upper Midwest, and that led to like a contractor role with Lowrance, which was fun. Did a lot of product validation, still do a lot of product validation for all the new products.
Now, what does that mean?
Testing.
Like product validation.
So I get all the new products, 6 to 9 months before anyone even knows about them. So on my boat playing with it, all the fun stuff. And, it's a hassle when we had the trolling motor, right? The Ghost trolling motor that we came out with, having to take it on and off the boat and take name panels off of it and stuff like that. So, try to keep it under wraps as best you could. But it was, it's fun. It's, you get to play with the new stuff, have a lot of input in product, and, just talking to customers, consumers, being able to give their input straight to product management is nice, because our product management listens to us for the most part. And we have a lot of fun with that. I mean, we've been at the boat access how many times putting a boat in, and someone comes up and asks, Gary or Keith a question, and then they defer them on to me, and then they have, some idea or concept. Oh, hey, this would be cool. And, you kind of got to weed some of it out, because, okay, well, one person will use it, or, hey, this actually could be a cool feature. So, there's a lot of stuff that our consumers actually are responsible for, stuff that goes in our product, which is cool.
So when you that's interesting, because that's kind of like the Ghost trolling motor you brought up, and it's crazy how there's been so much happening in the last, I don't know, 10 years, just as far as electronics. We'll get into this more, but the forward-facing sonar, and then it's like the trolling motor wars, right?
Yeah.
And I want to get into this Ghost trolling motor also a little bit later too. I just kind of want to maybe couple up the trolling motor that you guys came out with, and then the live target, but it's just huge. Those are huge things, and for a company too, the consumer just sees kind of the final product, but people don't really know what happens behind the scenes to put that stuff out there. And you went into a little bit, just as far as you had to like hide the it's almost like a new car model that's coming out, and they've got to hide it. They got to put like plastic on it in a way that people can't really see the lines of the new car or the new model of car or whatever. I guess it kind of sounds like it's similar to that.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, you take the plastic sides off, and everyone's like, "Oh, what's that? What's that? What's that?"
Right. Right.
You're at the boat access, and everyone's asking 100 questions. You're just like, "Oh, just some new stuff. Keep an eye out. 6 months."
But yeah, the thing is though, is just like how just stressful though that is for a company to be working on products that are that kind of is revolutionary too big of a term? I don't know. That advanced. That's a tremendous amount of I imagine manpower to be able to get that stuff to market. Especially that trolling motor, which Lowrance hadn't made a trolling motor before. What was it like in the company? Let's just talk about just the company itself. What was going on as far as the stress level of getting, let's just take the trolling motor now. Just getting that thing to market, getting everything, all the bugs ironed out of it, and then putting that thing out there.
Yeah, it was about a 4-year project actually. So we started out with from scratch, right? We didn't have a product. We want to make sure that it was the best product on the market, which I think it is. Bring new technologies, new features, new functionality, new ways of doing things, right? So I mean, it's how do you get fewer SKUs? How do you make it, forward compatible with items? And there was a lot of time and effort stuck into that, and I was actually lucky enough to have a lot of discussions with the product management team that put the trolling motor together, and making it a single SKU, per shaft length. So it's a 24 or 36 volt. It's not, you have to choose that, and the interchangeable nose cone for the sonar is a big deal, because hey, you buy a down imaging with it, standard. You want to add side imaging, you just take off the nose cone, put a new one on, and you're done, right? Like you couldn't do that before. You had to go buy a whole nother motor. So just a lot of those things, to make it more consumer friendly and items like that is a big deal, right? So I mean, it took us a long time to get it to market. And actually, I mean, the original one was supposed to be a cable steer, and they nixed the cable steer and went straight to the hybrid because that cable market was dying. And everyone wants GPS, the anchor lock, spot lock, whatever you want to call it. It's it's all basically the same. But we're fly by wire. There's no cables in it, right? So it's like how the outboards work. There's no cables in the DTS Mercury type motors or the digital Suzuki or Yamaha or any of those motors, right? Like they're all fly by wire, electronically controlled. So there's a motor that sits up on top, that little motor up there, and there's no cables. It's kind of nice.
So when that came out, first of all, I love just the look of it. It's very, like, I would say it's like kind of an industrial, kind of design.
Yep.
And it looks just mean as hell, and beefy. I mean, and I've spent a lot of time with that motor. And the power of it, obviously it's a 36 volt system. But what are you doing? I don't want this to sound like a commercial, but what is happening that thing, is there, it seems like, and I've heard this, Cheryl,
oh yeah.
Cheryl's at all the Major League Fishing events.
Yeah.
She says
Cheryl's
something.
awesome.
Yeah. She's busts her butt, man. Like, it's a great team just all around, with the service crews there. But, what is going on? Is there something that's done, or is there new advancement? Obviously, you got lithium batteries now that are stronger, but is there something in the trolling motor itself that's making it more powerful? Or
well, brushless is a big thing, right?
Okay.
So just battery consumption wise, it's it's just all of it with the brushless technology. It's more money though, right? So I mean, that was a tough pill to swallow. Like, hey, we're gonna go to market with a trolling motor that's $300, $400, $500, $600 more than your competitor. It's interesting, right? So, but the brushless is nice. I mean, the power consumption, you should be able to fish for 3 days on a battery charge. I mean, it's crazy.
Dude.
It's crazy the amount of the power you save. So, like, the other thing was kind of interesting, to find out about pounds of thrust and how it's measured, what true measurements are supposed to be and what we actually get out of ours. I mean, our 24 volts, about 97 pounds of thrust, and our in the 36 volt configuration, it's about 120 pounds of thrust. So, I mean, it's considerable. I mean, it's noticeable when you get in a boat. I mean, I've had, cable drive motors forever on my boat, Maxim or a Tour. They were good motors, but I put the Ghost on and I'm like, holy,
Yeah.
I had it on 24 volt. I'm like, God, this is more powerful than my 36 volt stuff was previously. And I put it on 36. I mean, I had to put it back down to 24 volt. Throw me out of the boat.
Yeah. No,
and I'm a big guy. I'm not small.
Yeah, you're no lightweight, dude. It's like what blows me away is the power of it. And, it's like the modern bass boat, they're heavy boats. I mean, they're big boats, and it's just kicking that thing around like nothing,
Yep.
I really see that application too. So what is Lowrance call it, their version of spot lock? Is it anchor mode or is it anchor?
Yeah. Yep.
Anchor.
Yep, anchor.
Okay. Yeah. And so I see that really being like a great application too for like just river systems. Just being able to like, especially that strong of a motor, if you got like heavy current, just to hit the anchor mode on there and just be locked in. I mean dude, I got everything. I got a newer deep V boat. It's actually was built during COVID, and I mean it's got everything stock on it still, And so it's 24 volt and it's just the stock trolling motor and I mean it's very primitive by today's standards,
Yep.
And I just can't wait to eventually get a higher end trolling motor on there. And it might be the Lowrance Ghost. I mean, let's be honest, it's a hell of a motor.
It is.
What I see like that's amazing as far as just having that anchor mode is just in current, in river systems where you could just lock that thing in and you can be, especially with the power of that Ghost, just be sitting there, and just walk around the boat, do whatever you need to, and just be like, if you're pitching jigs for walleye or whatever, that to me seems like just an amazing tool to have for those kind of applications.
Yeah, I play with it a lot down at Red Wing, actually in the springtime when you go down there and kind of hold two rods and put a jig on, a minnow or a jig and a ringworm, and just kind of slip drift with the current. When you're fishing by yourself, you got 100 boats down there. It's kind of nice to hit anchor and be able to net your fish by yourself and whatnot. So yeah, I mean it holds. I mean, if you want to go fish wing dams, and all of that, it's got all the power in the world, and it's going to have the battery that you can sit down there and fish all day and hang out without having to worry about, oh man, my battery going to go dead on me while I'm fishing.
Yeah,
so
that's incredible, dude. That's really incredible. So I always ask this to any of the guests that I have on, because I just like this question. I like to hear the answers. Obviously you're an avid fisherman, but how did you get started fishing?
Actually, a long line of fishermen in the family, from my dad and my grandpa on my mom's side and my great grandpa on my dad's side. So I'm lucky enough that I had great grandparents till I was I was like 21, 22, I think, when they passed. So I got to spend a lot of time in the boat with them, growing up, going to, all the Hutch, Minnesota area lakes, camping there, fishing on, staying at Piepenburg, fishing on Bell and Lake Washington. Actually, the first walleye I ever caught was over my shoulder here. My mom and dad, they decided they should mount it because they didn't think I'd never catch another one that big. So,
well, you showed them.
Boy, were they wrong. So,
I see.
Pretty entertaining.
So so you how old were you when you caught your
6 years old?
You're 6 years old.
6 years. I caught my first walleye when I was 6. I mean, we caught panfish and bullheads and everything else. I mean, my grandparents we'd go to Lake Titlow and Gaylord because they lived just south of town there, and we'd go catch bullheads in Lake Titlow we were just little shavers, and we'd bring them back and put them in the swimming pool, and we watch them swim around, and
did you
then
say
we'd eat them, and I'm like, ugh.
Did you say Lake Titlow and Gaylord? Did I get that right?
Yes.
That is quite a combination there. Goodness gracious.
It is. We had a lot of fun on the shores of Lake Titlow. So.
Right over your, it would be your right shoulder. If you're watching the video podcast, which is available at Angling Uploaded, the YouTube channel, our YouTube channel called Angling Uploaded. So check it out if you want to see this. You're listening to it. You want to see the video of it. Go over to Angling Uploaded on YouTube. I'm getting much better at plugging stuff now. You hearing this, Chris?
You are, yeah. You're way better than you were as a camera guy.
Yes, no doubt. So head on over. You want to see the video version of this podcast? Go to Angling Uploaded. Just search Angling Uploaded on YouTube, and you can see beautiful Chris Meyer right here. But across or over your shoulder, rather, that would be your right shoulder. You have some relics, man. You have some absolute relics. I see a Lowrance. It looks like a flasher, and then also a paper graph. So
a flasher paper graph.
It's a flasher and a paper graph. It is. Yeah. Oh my God, that's awesome.
High-end technology back in the day. I even have the stylus, and I have rolls of paper for it. It still works. It's. I actually have even more. Old stuff over my shoulders, green box. I have a red box as well, which is actually the first flasher that Lowrance built back in 1957. They built a run of like 1,200 red boxes. Most of them had a little issue with the motor, and they took them back and I actually have one of them that I found on eBay that I picked up that. They're pretty scarce, so everyone always thinks it's a green box was the first one, but it was a red box. But yeah, I've had actually all my years of traveling and screwing around. I've had old timers go, "Hey, you need one of these?" I'm like, "Sure, that'd be great." I mean, I've got one of the first structure scan boxes still behind me in my antique wall, and the flasher and the top shelf there, that was my dad's when growing up. And so yeah, I've got a few. I've got some of the wedding picture right there. That was one of the first 8-inch units.
I know what that is. Is that's an LC, right? It's an LC.
Yep.
Yep.
LCX38. That was one of the very first ones, and it finally died. So I took the guts out and put my wedding picture in there. With I had my boat at the wedding and my wife, and it was great.
And how's your wife feel about that?
Well, she's in the industry as well, which is funny because I've actually known my father-in-law longer than I have my wife. So yeah, they own a marine distributorship, which distributes marine parts and products across the upper Midwest. So I've known my father-in-law a lot longer than my wife, and so yeah, she's good with it. I think she likes this job better than when I was guiding full time.
I hear you. I hear that.
The paycheck's a little nicer.
A little bit more steady, probably too. I don't know.
Yeah,
although you're a hell of an angler, you probably did just fine with a steady paycheck. I would imagine guiding too.
Yeah. It was good. When I was contracting with Lowrance, they were paying me an annual salary to basically work 5 days a week, and I'd basically bankroll it. I'd work 7 days a week, all spring long and travel in the Midwest. And I basically have my summers off. So I guide all summer and then work all the shows in the fall. And so, yeah, it's
busy man.
It's been good. It's been a good career. So I can't.
Well, complain. I am happy for you. You've got a growing family too. Maybe it's still growing. I don't know. Are you? It's done growing or? Gotcha. Oh, you've been snipped, have you?
Well, we got to take care of that problem. My wife liked to be barefoot and pregnant. We'd have like 9 of them right now if I let her keep going, I think.
So I want to get back to the behind over your right shoulder there. We're talking about those the museum you have behind you. Yep. And I'm looking at, let's see here. I got to go back to I'm looking at so the flasher, right? The flasher. Yep. Do you, and I might get you in some trouble here, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Do you find it laughable that people still use flashers? Like they are convinced that the only way to ice fish is that you have to use a technology that was developed in the 1960s?
I would say no. I mean, no. I mean, it all depends on how you want to look at it. I mean, once you use ActiveTarget or live sonar ice fishing, I mean, it's really hard to go back. I mean, it basically replaces your locator. You have your chart plotter in there, with your map cards and all that. or built-in mapping in our case, and the live sonar, and if you want to do the flasher, you can. But in the same token, not everyone can afford all the high-end stuff, right? I mean, it's part of the game. You know, you're gonna pay for some of that stuff. So I mean, you know, if you're out on the ice and you want to catch fish, you got to have something, right? So I mean, if it's a $200, $250 Vexilar, perfect. You know, go out, go fishing. I mean, we sell a lot of our $99 our Hook 2 4X's, you know, and want to use those on the ice. So I mean, I don't give anyone a hard time about what they use. Buddies, I will, but you know,
well, yeah, you got to be careful on the podcast.
I'm not gonna.
This podcast has tremendous reach, so I don't want to alienate you. And who knows, you might, down the road. I think you're really solid in Lowrance. I don't think there's any, but who knows? You might have to get a job with Vexilar or something down the road. I don't foresee that happening.
I think Corey Studer would be okay. I don't think he'd have a problem with that. He's a good dude, so I mean, he runs Lowrance. Come on, I mean, it's summer boat, so he does have his edge in there, which is great. I mean, I mean, the industry is pretty small, right? I mean, when COVID hit, it was kind of like, God, what happened to what's going on with these people? And you're like trying to find people on Facebook, because it's like the big family reunion at every show you go to, because I mean, it is a small industry.
Oh yeah, it is.
I've seen guys burn bridges. That's like, oof, good luck.
Yeah,
good luck staying in the marine industry, because it's small. I mean, it's. I get asked all the time, how do I get into it? And it's like, to extent it's that good old boys club, right? But it's changing a lot with the corporate environment, and I mean, Brunswick acquired us, so we're under new ownership here for the last 6 months, and the going from private equity ownership to public company is very very different, right? Just what we're able to talk about even with our customers anymore, and so it's kind of interesting.
Do you find, like, in talking about how it's a small industry, and do you find that that you kind of have a leg up, though, in the fishing industry, in the marine industry, when you are yourself a passion? I mean, you'd think it just kind of goes without saying, but do you find like you do have a leg up? Like I keep on kissing your ass here, like you're a hell of an angler, But I mean it. I'm not just, but the fact that you are a passionate angler first, or and that to me would give you. Do you find that that's definitely an advantage, or has been an advantage for you?
I would say, yeah, to an extent, right? Like, if you're like, I deal with boat builders, right? So we're dealing, 2-3 years down the line, right? Like, what's going to be next in boats, and what's coming in these, and what do you want with that? But from a consumer standpoint, I mean, consumers aren't idiots, right? Like, if you're trying to sell them something and you don't know the first thing about it, you might as well just go home. I mean, you can't bullshit a bullshitter, right? I mean, fishermen are pretty good liars. So I mean, it's you gotta know your stuff, right? And I mean, everyone thinks we get to fish every day, all day, and I mean, I've fished in Lake Erie in April, and I went salmon fishing last week, and I fished Father's Day. So I mean, you don't get to fish as much as you want to, but we get to talk about it, talk smart, so it's good.
One of the things that frustrates me, I guess just in general, like if you go to like a Bass Pro Shops, you go to a Cabela's, and especially if you go to I mean, you can find this in any kind of section of the fishing department, sort of. But especially in electronics, I've found it's like it's kind of difficult to find someone that actually knows what the hell they're talking about behind the counter. Like
it can be, right. I mean, but that's the same with anything. It's like you go to Menards or Home Depot or
true,
or Best Buy. Even Best Buy. I mean, it's it's I mean, there's some guys that are really passionate about it. There's some guys that use the product. The guys that use the product, I mean, I've been to I've been to quite a few, national retail stores, and some of those guys are pretty sharp, and some of them, they're working in a different section and they're covering the counter because the guy that knows everything is gone. There's small mom and pop shops. You take a look at the Thorne Brothers or the Capras or, the Reeds even, or Shields. I consider Shield mom and pop, although they're national retail. You're going to find quality guys at almost every store, but, you can't have a guy work, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's, it'd be nice if you could.
True.
But,
True.
So it's just, I think some of it depends, but everything changes so fast. On average, we change product every 3 years, right? So, you're just getting comfortable with this and that, and now we roll out the next latest and greatest or next feature, next function, and there's so much to keep up on, just in electronics, and then you throw in all the rods, reels, bait, and all that. So I cut them a little slack, but it is kind of, I enjoy going up and striking up a conversation and just hearing what they have to say, because if I'm in Missouri, no one knows me, right? The guys, right, yeah. the Cabela's and Rogers know a ton of, they know me, so I can't even go and mess with them. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's fun to hear what they have to say, right? Like, and then our account managers that call them those guys, it's hey, you might need to do a little training here with this store, right?
Yeah.
So it's good to keep everyone honest, right? It's good to see what they know too, because if a retail associate doesn't know what they're talking about, your stuff doesn't get sold. There's a lot of times people just don't. You're not going to go spend $3,000 on something without having a little bit of info. The YouTube and all that have I think helped a lot of that. I still get people. I run into people at the Mall of America, like, hey, I watched a YouTube video on your autopilot that you guys sell, and I bought it. I got a question for you.
Oh, that's awesome.
You're like, are you kidding me? My wife just rolls around. We were on our honeymoon.
She better look at you differently when that happens. You're like, you see, I'm a celebrity.
His head isn't going to fit through the door is usually what she has to say. But like, even on our honeymoon, we had a guy come up and to my wife, and she's like, is that Chris Meyer? And she's like, yeah. Oh, I gotta go talk to him. I have a question for him.
I'm telling you, man.
My wife's like, we're on our honeymoon, and we had it happen. We had it happen up in Duluth. Well, you probably know Critter, who works for Wire to Fish. We ran into him at Park Point Beach, and my wife's like, "Who don't you know? You run to everyone anywhere." So it's kind of funny. So.
What's the most common question that you get when you're, I'm sure you get there's all kinds of, it's very varied, but like, is there one question that you get more than any about electronics?
Well, how do I run the thing? I just don't push the power button.
It really?
Push the power button, turn it on, let it do its thing. It's funny, right? So with when HDS came out, we spent, I don't know, 8-9 months working on getting the auto sonar settings, where you don't need to adjust a whole lot. Just turn it on and let it do its thing. The unit's smarter than you are, is what I usually tell everyone. And they was like, yeah, no kidding. I'm like, you don't need to touch anything. Just change your page, put the page on that you want, and just leave it. That's all you really need to do with the products nowadays. The old days, the LCX38, yeah, you had to go and adjust sensitivity, color line, all that stuff, to get a good picture. But the engineers listened. We spent a lot of time, a lot of hours, a lot of sonar logs, send back and forth. That just turn on, let it do its thing. Like I said, the unit really is smarter than you are. Can make the changes faster than you can go down and adjust. So. But yeah, that's a lot of it. How do I run it? I just hit the power button.
That's hilarious. So that LC model, it's really weird. We're putting on quite a bit of mileage now, you and I, Chris. It's like, 46 now. I look at my, did you ever watch the Thundercats growing up? You know what I'm talking about when I say Thundercats?
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah, I could go out in the toy room right now. Because my kids have all of my old toys. It's great. They don't go out of style.
That was my favorite. That and Transformers, He-Man. and Thundercats were my Voltron. They were that's what I watched. And so, but now like I'm getting up there in age, and my beard. I need a beer now. I'm sick of the sparkling water. My beard now, I look like a Thundercat. It's like gray. I look like the alpha, what like the main like male a Thundercat in the cartoon series. I feel like, you know, like I don't know. I digress.
Was that you meowing in the background?
Yeah, did you hear that? I have a Thundercat walking around here. Like crazy. This cat is so vocal, dude. It's a feral cat. I have a feral cat in the house. I
just wanted to make sure people didn't know I have a cat because
I've got 2 cats, and one of them just wants to be outside so bad it's crazy. But we're keeping the poor thing a prisoner inside this house. So it's a long story. Happen. But so I look at that LC. What's the name of the LC? That graph.
LCX38.
Yeah, dude. I filmed that thing. I have done so many close-ups of that graph because that came out in the early 2000s, if not mistake, right? Around there, 2004,
2006, 2005, 2006, somewhere there. I think there.
But yeah, I filmed it. I know I filmed that thing a ton. I mean, I look at it and I go, oh yeah. I've filmed that thing a lot. I've done a lot of tips with that particular graph. And it's funny to see that and think, wow, time has really gone quite quickly. It seems like, because it doesn't seem like that was that long ago, but now just the advances. I mean, that thing is like, it's like you have it back there in your museum, you know, with the rest of the artifacts.
Just a sonar GPS, right? No imaging, no live sonar, no Wi-Fi, no Bluetooth. I mean, really, some minor networking capabilities, but it's amazing how far it's come and where it's going and the future, where that's going, and all the advancements that are going to come out over the next 18, 24, 36 months. I mean, it's
we're going to get into that, my friend. I got my little bulleted points here I need to make sure that I talk to you about, but I look at that LC. What's it a name again? I'm sorry, dude.
LCX38. You should write that down.
LCX30. I think we'll probably move on from it. But what I wanted to say is, like, I had I know, of course, you're going to know this, but I had 2 X85s. Remember the X85?
Oh yeah.
And it was before that. That was like the X85. If people don't know this, like the Lowrance X85 was a monochrome, right? It wasn't color, but it was the shiznit, man. Like for fish finders back in the day, before color came, on the scene. And I remember putting 2 X85s on my first bass boat, my first real bass boat. And man, I thought I was the deal with those
now they're putting
85s.
Now they're putting 416s on a bass boat.
Obviously for Lowrance it's great, but I gotta tell you, man, I mean, I'm kind of like, this is kind of nuts, dude. Like, I mean, it's like it's like NASA, like ground control almost. Like with these, I saw, a lot of these guys are running 3 graphs now at the bow, and I think I saw Wheeler. I think I saw Wheeler had 3 graphs at his console, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
3 graphs at his console now. Is that right?
Yeah, I believe so. I don't follow the tournament guys as much as I probably should, but yeah, a lot of those guys. I mean, it's crazy, but the lithium batteries help out with that a lot. And
I know that you're not going to, listen, this is, I'm not going to keep pressing Chris. I don't want him to say, he's not going to say, it's ridiculous. Okay. So I'm not trying to make you, I could try to make you feel uncomfortable. I'm not going to do that because you're my friend. But
I'm sitting here in my boxers. So it's not like it's that.
So I am too, actually. It's weird they say that. I actually am wearing tidy whities right now. I'm not a boxer fan. Just kidding. Oh, yeah. I'm more of a, what is it, boxer briefs? Is that what they call them? It's the ones that kind of are a hybrid. I don't know.
I was thinking I figured you just had a banana hammock there, but
Unfortunately, there's no bananas going on. It's like I'm not gonna go here, man. I'm not gonna. So yeah, the X85. That was my first. That was what I was just in my 20s. That was my first real like highfalutin graph. And it was a Lowrance, man. And that was like, I remember just going around like Table Rock. That's really when I first realized that using that X85, I had an X85 at the bow and one on the back, if I'm remembering correctly. And yeah. And I remember just like even vertical jigging, this would have been like 2002 or something, 2003. With that X85 just like dropping down to fish, in 50, 40 feet of water. And everybody was doing that down there, using a graph, vertical jigging, and seeing the fish and going down, and then the fish would come up. And so when I moved up to Minnesota, I was just amazed. I'm going back to the ice fishing flasher thing here for a second again, but I was always amazed at people that didn't think that they thought that you could only use a flasher for ice fishing, and that a graph wasn't giving you a live reading. A Vexilar would give you a live updated and I'm like, listen, guys. I'm like, listen, guys, I can show you what they do in the wintertime at Table Rock Lake. They're using graphs, they're vertical jigging, they're essentially ice fishing. They're not using flashers, guys. But anyway, I just think that's funny about the culture up here and like flashers and Vexilar. Yep.
Yeah, I mean they make a great product, right? I mean it's they do very well with the Vexilars and the flashers up here in ice fishing. I mean, you go to the ice show. I mean, it's a
cultural thing,
right? Like it is. It's a perception, and it is, and you're seeing the change. I mean, look at the wheelhouses. I mean, Jesus, guys are spending $60,000 on an ice house where, those guys are spending the money on the technology, but they also have the disposable income to spend $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 on electronics for their ice shacks, and and then you've got the guy that goes out and fish on a bucket yet. So I mean, it's a very fishing is very everywhere from shore fishing all the way to. I mean, I go down to Miami Boat Show, and you go see those boats down there, and my boat's a dinghy on the back of it.
It's all relative, isn't it, man? You got an awesome
it's crazy,
boat,
right? Yeah, my boats are fun. I enjoy them. If I won the lottery, I know I would go buy myself a Freeman cat boat. So
I don't know what that is, but it sounds impressive.
Just Google Freeman, and when you can have a boat with 450s on it, and just watch the gas needle move. It's you can run in 6-footers full tilt, not even worry about it. So it'll be kind of fun on Mille Lacs when I do win the lottery to just go out there and fish whenever I want.
It's just like most of it's just like all bow, just like a huge like cutting bow, like one of those.
It's basically like it's they call it a cat boat, a catamaran,
it's a catamaran
type boat where. Yeah, it's like a catamaran style. It's a center console, but it has two hulls on each side, and you can fly in them. I mean, they're incredible. I mean, you have the CVs and the contenders and the yellowfins and all of those, which are traditional V hull type boats. But I mean, got to go spend $1 million, $2 million on a boat.
It's amazing, dude. It's amazing.
You don't worry about the gas bill. I mean, they just have a gas truck show up at the dock and fill it up.
Unreal, the amount of money. And I, one of my favorite boats is just the sport fish style. And if you're not familiar, what a sport fish is, it's like the ones with, I don't know how you would describe a sport fish, but they got this big giant bow and a tower. Right, so it's that's the best way to describe it. But there are some of these sport fish boats, and they're boats that can go open ocean. There's guys that
they're fun.
Yeah, And I mean, there's guys that travel, captains that take them all over the world. They're these sport fish boats are big enough, but they are like for the open ocean, and some of them like Viking sport fish boats. I mean, these are some of the most beautiful boats you've ever seen in your life, and they are.
Oh yeah, they're gorgeous.
Gorgeous boats. Like you're talking about the Miami Boat Show. I mean, Lord have mercy. If you want to, I'm amazed at freshwater boats and how far they've come, and just everything going on with the electronics and just the technology with the hulls and just all the stuff that's put into freshwater boats now. But you go to saltwater, and it's a whole nother universe of just impressive, and the amount of money that seems. I mean, it makes sense, right? There's a lot of money on the coastal.
It's all old East Coast money, right? I mean, I always ask the guys, like, I mean, they come in and write out a check for a boat. I'm like, you're up, check out for $2 million. Amazing, awesome.
What is that like to write a $2 million check?
Right, like you just sit there and you're like, holy crap. I mean, the one thing I always find funny, right? So we're freshwater guys, right? When Mercury launched their 350 and 400s, and everyone's like, "Oh, why would you need that?" I'm like, "Dude, you ever been to Miami? They put 4 in a boat, and they put new ones on every other year. I mean, it's crazy, And I mean, I look at the pontoon market. I mean, look at the pontoons right now. I mean, you have premier pontoons with twin 400s and twin 350s on pontoons. I mean, they're not your grandpa's pontoon, right? So, I mean, I always tell everyone, if you get to Miami and you're there during the show, you need to go to the show, because you will blow your mind at how cool the boats are.
Yeah, it's super impressive. Like, I just can't get over, the amount of the money and just, I mean, and they're beautiful boats, saltwater boats. Oh, they make some just gorgeous boats. They really, really do.
Yep.
But moving on to a more modest, back into freshwater fishing. The everyman, what the everyman can afford, I guess.
Exactly.
Which is hilarious, because some of these graphs, I mean, anymore. What's the standard graph size now, would you say, that avid fishermen, let's say, are putting on their boats?
9-inch minimum. I mean, It used to be 7. It used to be 7 not long ago. It was 5 not long before that. I mean, you look at the LMS 332s. I mean, that was the standard. I mean, to get someone to go from that $650 price range to $1,000 price range for a 7 was always interesting, back in my retail days. And, now you can get a 9 for $1,000 that does side imaging, down imaging. We'll support the live sonar. So if you want to add ActiveTarget, you can add it, and you're into a system for under $3,000, which is still crazy, right? I mean, it's like, to catch some fish, it's kind of funny, but, it does work. But yeah, 9 inches definitely for the avid angler is pretty well common now across the board. The really hardcore guys are buying 12s and 16s, and the average weekend guy, they're still buying a 7-inch, and you can buy a 7-inch, product relatively reasonable, sub $1,000. So, but you're just, I mean, look at your phones, right? I mean, we all used to have flip phones with a 1.2 inch.
Oh, dude, I remember.
Dot matrix screen.
Oh, yeah. I remember when I bought a Motorola Razr, and boy, did I think I was the king shit when I had a Motorola Razr, dude. Oh yeah. And I had that little screen. It was color screen though. And I could even check weather. I mean, it took forever to load up so I could see a radar, but I could technically check, weather on my Motorola Razr in 2004. So 2004, 2005, around there. Might have been 2005 I had that. But yeah, no, it's nuts. I mean, this, it's just the rapid acceleration and just the advancements of electronics just not just obviously in fish finders, but just everything. But I was going to ask you, so when do you think it kind of happened when now you see on, and obviously this is the same at the bow, but at the console, it was like, okay, back in the day, you had like a bigger, you'd have a bigger graph at the console. Was the thinking back in the day. It was like you had the bigger graph at the console, and then at the bow, you had like just a smaller graph up there. Now, yep. What everybody's doing is, I'd say tournament guys for sure, but I'm sure there's, some avid dudes doing this also. Now it's pretty common to see like 2 big graphs at the console and 2 big graphs at the bow. And sometimes now, like in, a lot of tournaments, man, the guys are running 3 graphs at the bow. But when did you see that first change, though, to like 2 big graphs at the console? When did that happen, do you think?
When live sonar came out, when the forward-facing sonar came out, because the guys want a dedicated screen just for that. There's so much going on.
You're talking about at the console?
Well, on the console and the bow, right? I mean,
right.
The console, I mean, for the mapping, they want the mapping, they want side imaging, they want their 2D sonar, they want everything. So splitting it up between 2 screens, the bigger screens, the better, right? My boat, I have a 7, a 9, and a 12 on the console. The 7 I use mainly for digital switching and for engine monitoring, engine control. But I have a 12 with mapping and down scan, and then a 9 for side scan on my console, and then I have a 9-inch at the back of my boat to run and control the boat from the back when I'm trolling for salmon or walleyes.
Wow. Okay. The other thing too that I can't help but notice when I'm in the back of the boat, filming, Major League Fishing. So at the bow, right? So a lot of these guys are running 3 graphs now. So now there's specific mounts being made to handle that, which is great. I think what you're gonna, and I'm sure you would agree with me on this, but you're gonna see more, products coming out for new, manufacturers that are, and they're already doing it. Like there's Bass Boat Technologies, there's Boat Logics, there's these mounts where, they're cleaning stuff up where you have like, you can have 3 graphs and it's just cleaner at the bow instead of just,
Yep.
But that being said, like it's getting kind of nuts up there. It's getting kind of nuts. And then like if you've got, I know this is Lowrance's arch enemy, but like Humminbird's got their 360 pole that's and then you got the 360 transducer connects to the trolling motor, right? So let's say you got that up there. Then you got, there's other stuff that I'm forgetting right now. Like,
it's all of it, right?
Then also, like, yeah, and then I mean now they got a thing that actually it's called, I don't know what it's called, but it's another thing that connects that to the trolling. It's getting out of control, I guess is my point. There's a lot of busyness going on up there. So
and that's why they're running multiple screens, right? I mean, it's trying to keep track of it all. I mean, it's all real time, right? Like it's all live, and you're just there's so much information to process, and I think that's where consumers tend to not comprehend it. Like there's just so much going on. I mean, I remember side imaging came out, right? Like, what am I looking at? They're still saying, what am I looking at? It's been, what is it? It's 2022. It's been quite a few years since side imaging's been on the market.
Did you just have to look at your computer to see what year it is?
I did. I work on model years, right? So I'm like talking model year 25 stuff. So I wrote a checkout not long ago, and I don't remember what it was for because who writes checks out anymore? But I'm like, what year is it? What year is it?
I write checks to the government, my friend.
Look at my phone. Oh, God, no, we're not going to get into that.
Yeah. The reason I can't get a graph at my bow is because I wrote a super hefty check to the government this year. But yeah, no. So the thing that I think, and I'm sure you agree with, I think the next kind of phase that's going to happen with, these trolling motors and just the graphs and everything is just going to be more, integration, more. How can we take these things and put them like built into the trolling motor? Like just have this stuff. And I know that Lowrance is already does that to a certain extent with the Ghost, right?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, that was part of it, right? Like, hey, I want to add side imaging to my trolling motor. So we made interchangeable nose cones, and then the ability via software, we can actually make the Ghost do that 360 without having to have all the extra stuff. Now, if you're anchored up, it's different, right? Because the trolling motor takes over and it spins and does its thing, but you still get a 360 image without having to spend $2,000 to do it. So I mean, there's a lot of there's a lot of things that we did with Ghost that did try to eliminate some of that stuff, because I mean, it's already, pulling them up isn't bad. You got a dual shock, but all of a sudden you start putting another 20, 30 pounds on your trolling motor. Just even is the bow, can the bow take it with all the beating that goes on? Right. There's just so many things, metal components. All of a sudden you break the mount, and then you're SOL and you're sitting there dead in the water. So, even like the live sonar, right? You put it on a pole. Like I use a pole for mine because I like to hit the anchor button and move my ActiveTarget around to find fish when I have the kids with, for panfish and stuff like that. So it's a little more versatile. Where a lot of the bass guys, they put on their trolling motor because whether they're fishing cribs, stuff like that, where they're on the trolling motor all the time, just different ways to fish, right? So, I mean, you look at how a guy that fishes ledges fish, when they fish them versus fishing cribs versus, just fishing up in the weeds. I mean, there's just so many different ways to catch fish. Same thing with walleyes. I mean, we've had that conversation 100 times. I mean, my tackle collection is pretty extensive to go catch a few fish.
Well, that's, and the thing about fishing too is that it's, there's so many, you can get so species specific, and that's what happens. I consider myself a multi-species angler. But there's a lot of people that are just like, no, I'm just a walleye guy, or I'm just a bass guy, it's interesting how in fishing it could be so compartmentalized,
Yep.
It's really interesting in that regard. I wanted to ask you about the forward-facing sonar and the live target. Kind of, if you would go into like what that was as far as for the company diving into that and just getting that off the ground. Because as we were kind of talking a little bit earlier about like the or I guess it was in the beginning of this episode about the Ghost trolling motor and the stresses involved. It's just, I mean, here Lowrance is making a trolling motor. They're known as the fishfinder company. Now they're making a trolling motor, but that live target technology too, just like getting a new product out, and that's like, it's such a revolutionary. When you first see what live target, like just forward-facing sonar, what kind of images it can produce, like I've filmed sometimes. The first time I really was blown away by it, I was filming a bass tournament up in Sturgeon Bay, and I was up at the bow filming a guy. He was fishing like pilings, and he's pretty close to him, and he swept the trolling motor around one of these pilings, and I'm telling you, dude, it was like an ultrasound image. I could see the sides of the fish and the fish just like swimming away. I was like, oh my goodness gracious. That's when I first was like, this is revolutionary. But like, what was it like, getting that live target for a company, getting that new product out to market?
It's the live sonar stuff is any sonar stuff, right? It's it's all been around for decades. Side imaging's been around forever. The live sonar has been around for forever. It's just getting it into a consumer friendly package. You need the displays to be able to have the processors to keep up and do the processing, and boxes and all that stuff to generate and make the image. Which, I mean, you take and you look at PlayStation, right? PlayStation 5 or Xbox or whatever they all are. A lot of that same graphic stuff, we use a lot of those same parts, right? To build that, so you get that graphical look, because it's basically just a video, right? So it's, we did the first version of our forward-facing live sonar was Live Sight, which was a good start into it. The roadmap for live imaging is, at that time was, we're going to have this and this and this and this order. And it did good. It was an all right product. I liked it. I don't really care about detail as much as some guys. I want to see every fin. Like, okay, well, I can see the fish move, and I'm going to catch it. At the end of the day, you still have to be a fisherman, right? You still have to know how to catch fish. You have to know what you're feeling for, and you need to be a fisherman. The tools are there to help you be a better fisherman. But if you don't know how to fish, these aren't going to make the fish jump in the boat, right? So then when we came up with ActiveTarget was a lot more detailed. You can see the fins on fish, right? The bigger the fish, the more you're going to see. So, small fish guys are buying it and they're expecting to be able to tell a 14-inch walleye from a 14-inch perch. And
I think I was calling it Live Target, like a dumbass. Active Target is what I meant.
You're fine.
Oh,
you're
my
fine.
goodness. Live Target's a lure manufacturer. Oh, my goodness gracious. I apologize.
You're okay.
You can listen at any moment when I'm acting a fool. Please, just slap me up. Live Target. I was just recently using a Live Target hollow-bodied sunfish. That's why I had Live Target on my. Sorry.
They're both quality products, right? But,
sorry. Go ahead.
ActiveTarget, like everyone that sees it, right? So like, it's really cool. It's by far some of the coolest sonar technology, right? I mean, everyone was in awe of side imaging because you actually got to see what the bottom of the lake looked like. But now you can watch the fish and watch them react and see what they're doing. But, everyone's still, it's the end all of all sonar. Well, not really. I mean, it is and it isn't, right? Like, if you're a tournament guy, you got to have it. I mean, there's so many tournaments that are won on that because you're fishing for 5 bites, right? Like, you're fishing for 5 fish. You don't care if you catch, quantity. You're fishing for that specific fish because it looks big, and you keep pitching a jig at it or casting a crank at it long enough, it's just going to get mad and bite or swim away. One of the two, right? I mean, that's what it's going to do. So you have to be a fisherman to be able to catch that fish, but you're fishing for 5 bites all day, which kudos to tournament anglers. It's awesome. Like my dad, he's got a place up at Cass Lake, and the fish are kind of spooky and skittish. The zebra mussels cleaned it all up. It's pretty clear. And, you can catch fish the old school way, rigging and all of that in deeper water, which is fine. But, then you got to fizz the fish, or, you just fight them slow so you don't, you can let them go without hurting them. If they're a keeper fish, doesn't matter. But, for him having that, being able to scan and see fish up in front of him because they're swimming away from the boat because the water's so clear, he can pitch a jig and a minnow up there and catch fish. He's catching more fish because of it. So there's some advantages to it. It is expensive. It does take some learning. I don't know how many phone calls I got from my dad. Like, what am I doing? How do I do this? What's this do? What's that do? Should I do this? Should I change that? Just leave it the way I set it up for you, and you'll be able to use it. I use it with my kids a lot. Pan fishing, it's phenomenal. I mean, it's, you can stay in a school, pan fish, and catch fish all day long. little kids, I mean, if they're bored in the boat, they don't want to go fishing. So it does keep them interested. We go up to Devil's Lake every year with them, and we'll put it on just a scout mode, right? Different look. And you can see all their lures, and then you can watch a fish swim around. It's like they figured it out. I mean, they're 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. The three of them. I mean, they're pretty close in age, and I mean, they sit there and like, oh, fish is coming towards mine. They quick look up, like, I think it's by mine, and they get so excited over it. I mean, so if a little kid can figure it out, an adult should be able to figure it out. You just need to take the time, learn it, play with it, just go out. I mean, everyone expects to see their jig though, right? So depending on cone angles and all that, sometimes it's hard to see an 1/8 ounce jig with a minnow on it, that you're dragging on the bottom of the lake. It's like, it's not perfect, but if there's fish around, you're going to watch that fish react. So you should know roughly where your jig is at. And that's part of, you still have to know how to fish, right? Like, you still have to know how to catch fish. But being able to watch those fish react to your bait, right? Did they swim away? Are they running towards it? Did you do something when you're reeling it in a jig cadence that, oh, hey, they slammed on the brakes? Like, okay, don't do that again. And you still have to pay attention to the fine details of how you're fishing. What I've always told people, go ice fishing with it, right? Because you're in a perfect environment for live sonar because nothing's moving, right? Like, the lake sheet isn't going up and down, and if it is, probably get off the lake. So just go out and play with it, use it. Ice fishing, it's awesome. I mean, I don't have to bring an underwater camera with me. I fished a lot of years with an underwater camera, watching fish. The first time I used the live sonar, it's like you can watch the walleye come in and then back up, like, and come in and back up and come in and back up. And it's like, oh man, I watched that on an underwater camera 1,000 times on Mille Lacs. I mean, if you set your camera on the bottom of the lake, the walleyes aren't afraid of a camera. If you have it up suspended, they won't come in. But watching fish react to it, I mean, you can jig. If you jig too hard, you'll watch them swim out. You'll watch them actually turn around and then come back in. It's like, okay, hey, whatever I did last time scared the crap out of them. So maybe tone it down a little bit. And it's fun to watch. Even like I was fishing with a buddy last winter, and we had a tulipy running back and forth between us. I'm like, well, it's not a walleye because it's not acting like a walleye. It's not swimming like a walleye. And we finally caught it, and it's like, oh, it's a little tulipy. So it is pretty cool to use and play with.
Do you I think what's kind of interesting is you would think like pro fishermen, right, would have a real good understanding of electronics. I'm not going to name any names here, but that's not always the case.
My phone's ringing right now. Hold on. Oh. Let me answer him. No.
But I like that. That was there. So, and I'm not saying that these aren't great anglers, but it's kind of surprising sometimes when I'll see instances where there'll be an angler that, they're inept, really inept, like with electronics. It's just almost like they're dyslexic or something, Do you, without getting into any trouble, what are your thoughts on that? To me, like, it's such an important, to be a great angler, electronics can take your fishing and your understanding of a body of water to such a next level if you really just dive into that and really understand it. Like, what are your experiences? What are your thoughts on that?
It's tough not to catch fish, right? I mean, electronics are a tool. Electronics are a tool that can help a guy who's a mediocre fisherman catch more fish. So I'll use Gary Roach for my example, right? Gary's old school Mr. Walleye. He'll go out and outfish everyone in the boat. And, give him a jig and a minnow, he'll go out fish anyone. It's the feel, the touch, hey, I just felt the bite. A lot of people don't know if it's a rock or bite, right? It's just kind of how it is. So, you still have to know how to fish and how to catch fish. And all of that, right? Like electronics will make you a better fisherman. It'll take a guy who's just dangerous enough and make him better. And these guys that can catch fish and can use electronics. I mean, just look at the tournaments. I mean, it's guys that know how to use their electronics are definitely the ones that are catching fish. Doesn't matter the brand either, right? Like you're comfortable with your electronics, you know what you're looking at, you're going to catch fish. But you still have to know how to catch them. I mean, I could go out and throw a 10-pound piece of crap and, be on fish all day, but they're not going to bite it unless you have some kind of carnal knowledge of, hey, this is what I need to be using. I mean, bait shops are a great source of information. If you don't know how to fish, hire a guide. Hire a guide. They will go out and show you different techniques. I mean, take walleye fishing. I mean, it's everything from trolling to bobber fishing to rigging to jigging to hand lining, whatever. I mean, there's 100 ways to catch fish. I mean, hire a guide, go out and learn something. Even salmon fishing, right? Like I go out to Algoma salmon fishing, and I'm fortunate enough to know some charter captains, and you go fishing with them and you pick up stuff, learn stuff. I mean, it's, now I go out there by myself and you just go out there and catch fish. I mean, we caught a pile of salmon with a couple buddies that, I mean, they don't know the first thing about salmon fishing, but they could reel them in and, it's all what direction is the charter boat going, right? Like if they're heading 53 degrees, you best be heading 53 degrees instead of 90 degrees opposite of them, because they know the current, they know the temperature, they know everything. Like, and they don't mind you kind of following them, just don't get in their way because they'll run you over, so.
Yeah. For me, and I've worked a ton with Gary Parsons and Keith Gavais, and they're big electronics guys, and I filmed a ton of bass guys, like really good, anglers that are great with electronics, and to me, the best use of electronics is just to take the time, especially if you're on a new body of water, just to take the time to get, understand the lay of the land, so to speak. The biggest thing about fishing is you don't, and this is what makes it hard too as a spectator sport, on television. It's the playing field is invisible, right? So what electronics give you is just an understanding of what's below the boat, and especially if you get to be a better angler, that little structural differences can really be key, or a change in vegetation, or, a point of vegetation coming out, or a little tiny rock pile that, whatever, these little gems, like if you're side imaging and you just see something. I mean, I've been on shoots where, guys will know, like on a body of water, just like for one instance is down in Florida, a guy that I was filming, he was looking for, I think there was like mussel beds, and he could see and it was the key, man, and he could just see using side imaging, just this this little area, and he's like, yeah, that's the deal right there, and there's a body of water that I need to go on soon that I just found out recently that's got smallmouth in it, and I was like, I had no idea that lake had smallmouth in it, and it's got big ones evidently. And
Mille Lacs, when are we going?
I know. Yeah, right. But no, it's a little bit smaller than Mille Lacs. But I mean, honestly, the first thing I'm not even going to fish for a while. I'm just gonna side image the hell out of that lake and just look for rock. Little whatever. I mean, I'm just going to be like anything that looks that's a hard, bottom, or like rock piles. I'm just going to be like waypoint. And that to me is one of the best, maybe the best use of just electronics to get an understanding of what is below your boat. Get like, just to have an understanding of the lake and what you have to work with. You know what I mean? Like that to me is like, and and utilizing your fish finders to just to help you do that, to me, is just like, is critical too strong a word? I mean, it's fishing. Is anything critical in fishing? But it kind of like is critical to me.
Find fish, catch fish, right? I mean, you paid for a sonar. I mean, it's meant to show you fish. I mean, even a 2D sonar, you can find a lot of fish with 2D sonar. And then you throw down imaging on that and actually be able to count each individual fish that's in a school, or just going along with side imaging. Like I always tell people, just leave your rods at home. Go drive around. You're gonna see things, and there's gonna be so much going on that if you're trying to fish, you really need to take the time. And it's all about the details, right? And a lot of people, their details are, do I have enough ice in the cooler to keep my beer cold enough to go fishing for the day?
Yeah.
Important stuff, right? Like,
no doubt,
beverages, but when you spend the kind of money that some of these guys spend, and to not take the time to go out and use it and learn it, and just drive around. I mean, the first time I used side imaging was up on the Lahamadu chain up at Alexandria, and it was the coolest thing ever. I mean, it was like, oh my God, we didn't fish for half the day. We were going around marking fish. I'm like, I think that's fish. Let's go back and we'll fish them later. Let's just, we're dropping waypoints. Like, it's going out of style because I'd never fished up there before. And we caught a pile of fish and ended up like second in the tournament. Never fished a place, and our pre-fishing was like a day and a half, so I mean, we used our advantage and just go out and play with it. I mean, that's the biggest thing, is just take the time to go out and just mess around with stuff. You can't wreck anything, right? Like, there's a restore default on every manufacturer's products that you can go, we're back to where we started from originally. So, I mean, don't be afraid to use them, right? Like, turn it on and just go drive around. I mean, I recorded side imaging for the south half of Mille Lacs, and I have all that data saved. So when I go ice fishing, I can go right to a specific rock and drill one hole and fish on that rock and catch fish. And, but I'm also kind of crazy that way, but, spend the time to learn your stuff, even a fishing rod, right? Like, go where that there's sand and go drag a jig on it and see what it feels like. And then go to a spot where there might be gravel and drag your jig and just get to know your rod even. I mean, there's so many different things that if you take the time to understand it, and it's the same thing with the shooting sports, right? Like, you're not going to take a brand new rifle with a scope on it, a guy bore sights it, and go out and go elk hunting. I mean, you're going to go and shoot that thing at 100, 200, 300, 400, 500 yards. But even then, if you're going to try to shoot 500 yards, you're going to spend money on a scope, right? Like, you could have the crappiest rifle in the world, a cheap Savage rifle, and put a $2,000 scope on it. You get yourself a shooter. My 14-foot bow does an HDS 12 on it, so...
I am not surprised by that.
Crappy boat, but hey, they're your eyes, right? Like,
absolutely right. What is there, like,
catch fish?
I imagine that would slow that big of a graph on a 14-footer would actually slow the boat down quite a bit when you're under power.
If you get a tailwind, it'll push you along because you got that much more to catch. So.
Yeah, you got a sail. Use it as sail.
What is there wind sensor on?
Yeah. Is there is there like one tip or one piece of advice like that you could give someone just to be a better better angler with electronics? Is there one thing that kind of stands out that could, or is that it? Just, you got to spend time with the unit.
Time on the water, right? I mean, YouTube, the platforms, YouTube is great. I mean, back when I was guiding, I did a lot of guide trips in guys' boats where we never even fished, right? Like, they brought their boat up, went out on the water, and showed them how to use their electronics. Showed them what they're looking at, right? Like, because what am I looking at? What am I seeing? What am I, what's this mean? What's that mean? And you kind of got a baby step, right? Like, there's so much information to take in. That's like go back to the bass guys, right? They got 316s on the front of their boat, one with side imaging, one with live sonar, and one with map, and they're trying to process all the data that they're seeing on the screen all at the same time. And it's a lot to take in, right? Like, it's intimidating until you do it a lot. It's not driving a car. I mean, you didn't drive a car 100 miles an hour the first time that you got in it. You know, I mean, you waited until about the third or fourth time when mom and dad weren't with.
you drive a little bit different than I do, evidently.
Hot rod cars.
No, that makes sense. I get you. Well, dude, I've appreciated your time very much, and I know that you have a hell of a day tomorrow. So I know you need to get some rest. But I do thank you for coming on another fishing podcast.
It was fun.
But I do want to ask you though, and this is I'm excited about this. I want to. Can you give us any sneak peeks before we go here? Any sneak peeks of what could be coming down the pike from Lowrance?
Well, I could tell you, but I'd have to kill you. But it's it's ever changing, right? Electronics just changes. It's a fast paced changing environment, so to speak. And it's, innovation is definitely at the forefront, and we are probably living in the most exciting time for just all the stuff that's going on. I mean, there's just so many things in the fishing industry, from boats, motor technologies. I mean, Mercury just launched a 25 horse that will do SmartCraft functions, which is pretty cool. I mean, if you start playing with a lot of the SmartCraft and that functionality, and there's so much stuff going on, technology. I mean, cell phones drive a lot of it. I mean, it's pretty cool. We switched to a new operating system on our sister company, Simrad, which is going to change the scope of what we're able to do with software. And I mean, everything is software driven, right? It's a bunch of people. It's just typing, right? All they do is type the code, and there's some really smart people, and there's a lot of good things. I mean, it's the future. The future of marine electronics is great. The future of fishing is great. Just the products that are out there, everything across the board is awesome, from boat, motor, trailer to fishing tackle.
Yeah, I'll say this, and I've said it many a time on this podcast, but this is like the golden age of fishing as far as I'm concerned. The amount of technology, in electronics, as we've been talking today, but also across the board, lures, rods and reels. Lures is a great example too, because I mean, you can't have a lure that is half-assed anymore. Like, I mean, every lure is like just super detailed. The hooks on them are so sharp. Back in the day when I was a teenager, I mean, I remember when Gamakatsu came out, like in the 90s, is the first time I experienced like the sharpness of a Gamakatsu hook. I was like, what in the hell is this? And then shortly after that, it's like everybody, like Mustad, was like, oh, we got to have super sharp hooks now. But that goes also into just lures, like super detailed. I mean, and it's just gotten, it's gotten more and more impressive as time has gone on. And yeah, with, I mean, forward-facing sonar, the trolling motor technology, and I know that this man has got things going on in his head he can't tell us, but Chris, I'm really excited to see what's coming, from Lowrance, and it's a very exciting time to be a fisherman, and I'm excited that I've been able to have this conversation with you, because number one, whenever I've had conversations with you, I've really enjoyed it. We talk for, I mean, we can talk for a very long time. We click well, and it's been too long. And I know I say this a lot, but I really mean it. But I hope that we can get in a boat together soon. I say this.
We've been saying it for a while.
I
right?
know. And you don't live that far from me. And so, and honestly, like I said, early on in this podcast, I am really I need to become, I'm living in Minnesota. I need to become a better walleye fisherman because I love catching walleyes, man. And I'm in Minnesota. I've got to, this is a great bass state too. I mean, Lord have mercy, people up here, they call them green carp. A lot of like the walleye guys, it's kind of funny because they're everywhere and they're relatively easy to catch as opposed to like other parts of the country. Really, there isn't a lot of pressure, comparatively speaking. But I'm surrounded by such great water, such great fishing opportunities, and I really need to get my act together with walleyes. I mean, I have kind of an idea on river systems, but like lakes, I gotta get my act together. To wrap up this podcast, dude, I really do mean it. I'd love to get. I mean, I got a boat out here. I could, your boat is way more set up than mine is, but I really would love to fish with you. If you ever get some time to do that. I know you're jet setting tomorrow off to God knows where, but
Table Rock, your favorite place.
Table Rock, you're going to Table Rock. So, but honestly, like I do mean that. I really think the world of you, dude. I've always enjoyed working with you. You have a vast amount of knowledge, but you're very down to earth guy. And I've always, I'm kind of gushing right now, but you're one of my favorite people, dude. And I'd love to fish with you sometime.
Well, we'll figure out when we get out and talk it. We'll go.
And I'm not trying, honestly, dude. I'm not trying to get a graph out of you either. It's just so for the record, I have never asked this man for any product. Okay,
you have not. So it's crazy.
I mean, I'm telling you, I legitimately just enjoy having conversations with this man, and we've spent a lot of fun in the boat together in the past. So. It's
we've had a lot of fun. We've had a lot of fun in the boat, from almost dying on Lake of the Woods to sweating our butts off trying to catch a dang muskie.
Oh my goodness gracious! Yeah, that we were with Maine on a shoot, and I mean muskie shoots can go forever and a day. Really, any shoot can, but muskies in particular can be, they're the fish at 10,000 casts, right? So. But what's funny about that nearly dying shoot? I mean, I went. So that was with Gary Parsons. We were filming a Next Bite episode up on Lake of the Woods, and honestly, it was rough. And I guess the live wells were full, and we speared one, and I mean the boat filled up with am I remembering this correctly? The boat filled up with water, and it was like panic mode.
Oh yeah, planer boards are floating. Chase and I were netting fish. Gary's driving the boat like, guys, we gotta go. We gotta get in. This is crazy. We're like, oh, we're having fun. We're catching fish. What are we worried about? We got life jackets on. We're good.
But I'm telling you, dude, Gary's a veteran. This is Gary Parsons. I mean, arguably the greatest walleye angler, to have ever lived. Okay. And I saw fear in Gary's eyes. I mean, I saw fear in Gary's eyes. And Gary's been on freaking big water. He's been in all of the worst conditions. And when I saw fear on Gary's eyes, I was like, oh shit. I'll never forget that. And what's
the
funny
look on Chase's face.
Yeah, Chase Parsons was in the boat with us. Yeah. Oh yeah, it was. Yeah. What's funny is like fast forward, I don't know, like 7-8 years later, I'm shooting an AIM walleye tournament on Lake of the Woods, and I'm telling you, I had a very similar situation. I mean, just crazy waves, and I'm like, what? Whenever I get on Lake of the Woods, I always fear for my life, it would appear. So I don't know, but we've it
is Lake of the Woods.
Yes, it's an inland sea, right?
Yep.
But have a great time in Table Rock, and again, dude, I really appreciate you coming on and dropping some wisdom on us.
Yeah, anytime.
Thank you, my friend.
Yep, thank you.